Hi.
Hello.
What's going on?
In life?
Yeah.
I'm considering paying money for this flexibility program.
What's that? I thought it was like a program with flexible payments. No, it's on flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is this some like tax thing? I don't know.
No.
Okay. Flexibility program.
Mm-hmm. Some yoga lady whose posts I keep seeing on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's about flexibility and how most people like passive stretching every day is like not the most. I don't know. I like programs.
Yeah. Programs are great.
But then I did like think about getting a handstand one and then quickly was like, just kidding. I don't want to. So I don't know. I can't tell if it's a huge waste. Like, on the one hand, I definitely don't need to be more flexible, right? Like, of all the things.
You're very flexible.
I mean, I'm like, okay, but it's not like a huge, it's not the most important thing right now. But it just means because it costs money. It's not exorbitant, but like, I don't know whether or not it's a good expense at the moment.
Okay. Were you just drawn to it because you like the woman's Insta? Or like...
No, I don't even follow her. I just
I
just get her ads or whatever.
Oh, okay.
She does a lot of like handstand related stuff, but then I like the way that she talks about flexibility as being like part mobility and part like part passive and part active.
Yeah, that was one thing that you taught me. That
The active and passive thing.
Yeah, that changed everything.
Right.
That changed how I did yoga, how I thought about it. Because then it's like this constant dance. I want to say that feels like the best word for it. Of like, how do you balance the like surrender and
Right.
the control?
Yeah, so I liked a couple of things of hers, and unlike, I have all these, there's so many like fitness related things that I like and am interested in and do, but I've never worked on flexibility yet.
Really?
Yeah, no. I've done yoga, but like, I've never thought of flexibility as being a goal. So partly I was just like, I wonder what that would be like to like actually work towards like not hating hip openers.
Yeah, it's so funny that you hate hip openers.
It's not funny, it's completely normal because like
everyone love hip openers.
That is unusual because pretty much everyone hates them.
Yeah, you're right actually. That's usually where people are.
Yeah.
Love them. No, where I struggle is like shoulder.
Shoulder what?
Shoulder open. My shoulders are really tight. So I used to stretch this out, and now I think it's gone back to where it was. But like you do this and then clasp from behind. There was one shoulder that I just like could not. This way, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I can cut. So it used to be so much worse than it is now. It used to just be like,
Very good.
Yeah.
This is as far as this goes.
Pretty much that was it. So that's where I get frustrated.
Also, I've been seeing things that are like 2017. Someone in a pose, and then 2020 someone in a pose. And I've been like,
Those
it's never
extraordinary.
Yeah, it's really cool, but it's never occurred to me to like. That's just never occurred to me somehow.
That if you stick to something, you can have that.
I just don't like. I would never think to track something like that. And it's not like, I can do a handstand or I can't do a hand. Which actually, no, that's not even a thing. But like, flexibility, the whole thing is on a gradient, so it's kind of like, it would never occur to me to document where I was at flexibility-wise. And maybe that's not even what they were doing when they took the first picture, but I don't know.
14 days.
It's an axis. What's 14 days?
Oh no, why am I assuming it's 14 days?
I don't know.
I don't know where I got that. I have no idea where I got that. How long's the program?
I don't know.
Why did I pull that out of my head?
I have no
It's
idea.
like 14 days. What can you accomplish in 14 days?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Anyway.
Okay.
I think maybe I was thinking because like you've been doing, is it like a 2-week thing you're on with
Rising Waters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it's, I placed it there.
Just got a Russian name.
Oh wait, is it that one you did? No, it's not. The lady you did a workshop with. Sal's.
Oh,
partner.
no,
No.
she's not Russian. No, not her. Someone I don't know and don't follow and don't nothing.
It just pops up in your Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram knows what's best for me.
I think that was a great time to do that kind of challenge.
Yeah.
So what else are you going to do? And then at least you can be like, what did you get out of your quarantine?
Exactly.
I got my splits or like whatever.
Exactly.
It is. Yeah.
I never tried, so I don't know. Also, the idea, just in general, in terms of like something being difficult but not effortful. Remember, you were like that conversation where you were like something can't be difficult and not be
right
effortless. I don't know. In that same way, I've never put effort into. I don't know what it would look like to put effort into flexibility.
Mm.
That's really like a.
I was watching, I don't know how this popped up on my feed. There's just this random girl and her journey to getting the splits.
Mm-hmm.
It was so sweet because that's so condescending. But like where she started, she's like, I'm not athletic. I don't do anything. Just I like identified with her strongly because she was like, every once in a while, I throw a challenge at myself. And then she just gets obsessive and like has to do the challenge. So she just decided she was going to get splits.
Mm.
Like not full splits, but what do you call this?
Split.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this one's harder than this.
Is it?
Yeah. I think it is.
Mm.
Anyway, she decided she was going to get that, and like it was amazing to see like where she was at the beginning.
She was like this.
She pretty much.
Oh.
And then maniacally, like, and her process of trying to get it was so weird.
Was it?
Like, at first, she decided that she just wanted to get the splits on her right side. What a terrible idea.
Oh my god. That's nuts.
So she was, like, just kind of trying to force her, like, right side into it. And then, of course, she injured herself. And then slowly, like, her methodology got better and better. And then she kept setting like a deadline for herself, like she wanted Thanksgiving, and then she wanted Christmas, and then she didn't meet either of those. And then she felt really heartbroken about it. And then it was kind of like when she gave up like reaching it by a specific time, that's when like suddenly the splits gave in, succumbed to her will. I don't know. It was really sweet.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And like,
it's so funny that like documenting something from the beginning like is making it seem like, oh, I'm obviously gonna get there.
Yeah.
As opposed to
you're like, I have to have something to show for this.
Yeah, because you're like yeah. I think that's one of the reasons people are like, take a before picture. So it gives you the feeling that like there's gonna be an after.
Yeah, that's really powerful. What would be all my before pictures?
Hmm?
What would be all my before pictures?
What do you mean? Like, where in your life are you still in your befores?
Yeah.
Or where?
Like, what if I've not been willing to take a before picture for? You know what I mean? I think that's why I like looking through pictures, old pictures.
Because you're like before.
It's so interesting to me how I've changed. And then I look at myself and I'm like, I think I remember where I was at, but I don't look like it. But it's because I'm thinking all like emotionally, not really physically.
Right.
Yeah, I think you can get really stuck with just like maintaining. Like, I've been working out a ton, but even this is interesting where like I'm starting to think about it in terms of like, what am I just like trying to get through? Like, okay, good, I worked out. Versus like trying to like actually change the shape of my body.
Right. Well, you have to actually have a goal in order to work out that second way, I think.
Yeah, I most of my life have not really done that. It's just been a like, oh, I should work out, so I'm going to work out. I should be doing something. Versus like being able to do a decent push-up or a pistol squat or
that's a good before.
I don't know what, something that I want to be able to do. I want to be able to do like the backward bend into bridge.
Into wheel,
yes. Sorry.
Cool.
I bet. Can you do that?
I used to be able to. I haven't tried it in a while.
Flexibility.
Yeah.
Is from what I remember.
Yes.
That's the most impressive thing.
Back extensions.
Yeah, her like cat cow. Yeah.
I've never thought about that in cat cow, but yeah, that's one of the more open things.
Mm-hmm. What would you want? More flexibility.
And it's, again, like I've never thought about it like this. I would like to be in Navasana and then be able to have my legs like shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because that to me is one of the things that I'm like, what?
Yeah. And those are the really obvious before after pictures.
Because the splits and stuff, like, I don't know. I don't like. Maybe I'm just like desensitized to because the split is like, it's something that I remember thinking about in like high school. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems like such a boring goal. But that might be because I did dance and stuff in high school. So like I remember it being, I don't know. Yeah. But also I don't think it would be that hard. Like I feel like I sometimes can do it on my left side. It'd be good to like have a goal that's like getting your right side or getting your whatever the fugly side is to the same place. That would be a goal that I would be interested in because my two sides are different in that way. Very different. But yeah, the Navasana thing I would think was, you can't even fucking call it Navasana. It's like a butt stand. It's like a sit-bone stand.
Yeah, seriously.
You know? Because like nothing's on the fucking ground.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true with Navasana in general. That's true with Navasana in general. They should call Navasana the butt stand.
The butt. Right.
Seems like
you could start it. Yeah. Go into butt stand.
Anyone taking butt stand?
You know what I also want to be able to do that I was thinking today? Okay, so I cannot do a proper sit-up. Like, I don't know what's going on.
What can you do a quote-unquote proper?
Right. What can I do properly?
No, like in terms of, do you live up to your goal in any of the...
Okay, what I mean by this is, so I'm like working out and it's like we're flat on the mat and then you're supposed to like roll your spine up and go forward, you know, and then go back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so legs are extended, not bent. And I cannot do it without using leverage, without like, and my legs fly up. And I would like to be able to do it like all flat on the mat, just with, I'm assuming, tell me if I'm wrong, that it's core strength. Yeah, okay. So, I don't know if it's just like my abs are teeny tiny, and that's why they can't do it.
Like, because they're not strong enough.
Yeah, they're not strong enough. But do they have to like bulk up? You know what I mean?
Kind of.
Like, do I have to get bigger?
You can't stay your size and do a bunch of stuff that you can't do.
Okay.
Currently.
Okay.
Like just in a larger sense, I would say.
Yeah.
Is it possible that you could look exactly like this and do a roll up? Yeah, probably. But that's a thing. If you're going to be battling that in every direction, if you're talking about doing things that you can't physically do.
Even like this girl who was teaching the class, she was tiny.
Yeah, I mean everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
They're all different kinds of strength. If you like did Pilates, that would be something that would inevitably come.
Yeah.
The roll up, because it's like a specific thing that they're always working on, at least in the mat.
Yeah. And it always hurts my neck too. And I think that's because I'm not lifting from the place I should be, right? It's not supposed to hurt your neck.
Yeah. But in stuff like that, I've always found that if neck tension is something that you often deal with, one of the things that has helped me in doing all kinds of like sit up, anything that where you're like this, which I guess is a bunch of different types of abs, it helps to push your neck back into your hands.
Okay. Get that double chin.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But to like actively be pressing back into your hands.
Yeah.
It keeps that tension from going there if that's somewhere that you generally accumulate tension.
Maybe I'm gonna get my sit up.
You're not gonna like. I don't know what you think is gonna happen.
It's more just like it's a question of do I need to be bulking in any specific way?
What would that even look like for you?
I don't know exactly. Like eating more protein, eating more. You know, basically what I'm saying is
you
like
do have to. You do
at
have
this. Can I achieve this from this place?
No.
Cool.
Because something does have to physically happen.
Yeah, something has to physically change.
Which doesn't mean it's gonna look different necessarily. Like it might not. Your body might not respond that way.
Yeah.
Mine really quickly does. But everybody is different, so it might not do that. But I don't think you can. Like you do still have to build the muscle.
Right, exactly.
So, can you do it from here? No, because then you'd be doing it.
Then I'd be doing it, right? Yeah. Because I always I feel my abs and I'm like, I have abs, but it seems like they cannot do very much. I don't know if that makes sense. Like they feel strong for what they are. They're just tiny, I guess.
What do you mean tiny?
I guess they feel strong.
Sure.
But what I mean by tiny is I guess their capacity is still limited just because of their size. Basically, I just need more muscle. I need more of it.
But I don't know if you have to necessarily think of it in the way of like they're too tiny.
That's what I mean. So is it like
they're not strong enough?
They're not strong enough.
Correct. So, yeah, you will have like physically more of them, but it's more like you break down what you have and it regrows, and you break it down and it regrows, and that's what working out is. In a way, you're ripping the muscle is coming apart basically, and it's rebuilding stronger and rebuilding stronger and rebuilding stronger.
Okay.
So I don't know what the exact translation is. Like, can you have the same like literal quantity of muscle, but have it just be like put together more sturdily? Maybe. I don't know enough about anatomy and shit, but usually, yeah. You know what I'm saying or no?
I think I get it.
In terms of like general mass.
Yeah.
Like it might be that you could end up with do a bunch of the work and have your same size muscle, but it just be much more like made better. Like,
okay.
Because we are like breaking stuff down in order for it to go back down.
Right. It's funny. I've obviously heard that, and I never like thought it fully through.
I mean, I think this is the first time I've heard it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna get my setup.
You are? Mm-hmm. Cool. That sounds like a roll up, just specifically.
Right.
Which a roll up is harder than a sit.
Yeah. I'm gonna get a roll up.
That's the like graceful Pilates one. It's like,
yeah, it was a Pilates class.
And one of the ways that you there's this one spot that a lot of people get stuck and it's really clear in the negative. So when you're rolling back down, there's a part that people are just like at the end,
yeah, totally.
and it's there.
Right.
So one of the ways you can fully work on it, you're not asking me this.
What?
I'm hoping it's gonna be about work. Is to go and try to smooth through that.
Oh, just work that transition.
That point. So like if you go back, control, and just like every time you do it, try to have even this much more, like this much less of a dump at the end. And if you like iron through that wrinkle, then it should be better going coming out as
well. Yeah. Thank you. That's really good. So some people do it with their like feet under the couch and stuff, and I don't fully get that. Yeah, because isn't that you're cheating?
You're not cheating. You're just making it impossible to cheat in a certain way, which is letting you.
Yeah.
But you're giving yourself something to like leverage.
Exactly. If the point is you're trying to work without leverage, and you're just adding different leverage.
Agreed.
I'm sure doing it that way still does something.
It does.
Yeah.
But I've never fully understood that. Even just yesterday, there was this woman on Instagram who's really freaking strong. And for whatever reason, she's doing like leg lifts and her like hands were under the couch. And I was like, I would think that was making your life easier, but I don't know. Maybe it's not. I don't get it. What happened in the book? Are you ready to talk about it?
Yeah, I'm ready. It's already 8 o'clock.
I think this will be a short one.
What happened in the book was
the attempted.
Oh yes. Do you want to tell it? Okay. Anatole came to her house to steal her away into the night. He came with Dolokhov, but then there was a footman who already knew about the plan.
Intercepted him.
Yes, and that Dolokhov shouted, "Betrayed! Betrayed!
Back! Betrayed! Back!"
And so they like retreated and stole back into the night. And Sonia, and then we like backtracked, and what had happened was Maria Dmitrievna had found Sonia in the hallway and forced her to tell her what was going on. And Sonia told her everything. And then Maria Dmitrievna like went to Natasha and yelled at her.
Like, murdered her, yeah.
Basically called her a stupid
Everything.
little hussy.
Actually, that might have been in her head.
I'm not sure if it was in her head or outside. I'm not sure. Anyway, there was the word hussy.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say hussy? I know. Okay.
Yes. You know what?
Yes.
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 Okay. Yes.
And so anyway, the engagement is canceled. Natasha is very upset.
Whose engagement?
Her and Anatole. All of the engagements are canceled.
Yeah.
And then also Prince Andrew came back.
And he's acting like he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he's like, well, I don't know, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. I think he does almost protest too much, so we'll see.
Mm. And also Pierre finally
Is there.
was something. And he confronted Anatole and told him he had to get out of town. So Anatole went to Petersburg.
Which doesn't seem like that much of a departure.
Yeah, he just gets to continue on doing the same old. I think that's all that happened.
And everyone knows.
Everyone in town knows except her father? Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, her reputation might be ruined. And where are we?
22, I think.
Okay. We're book 8, chapter 22.
Mm-hmm.
That same evening, Pierre went to the Rostovs to fulfill the commission entrusted to him. Natasha was in bed, the Count at the club, and Pierre, after giving the letters to Sonia, went to Maria Dmitrievna, who was interested to know how Prince Andrew had taken the news.
Oh, she was.
10 minutes later, Sonia came to Maria Dmitrievna.
Natasha insists on seeing Count Peter Kirillovich, said she.
But how? Are we to take him up to her? The room there has not been tidied up.
Who the hell is Peter Kirillovich?
Count Peter Kirillovich. I don't know.
No, she has dressed and gone into the drawing room, said Sonia.
Maria Dmitrievna only shrugged her shoulders.
When will her mother come? She's worried me to death. Now mind, don't tell her everything, she said to Pierre. One hasn't the heart to scold her. She's so much... What do you mean? Yes, you do have the heart to scold her. Hasn't she been scolding her this whole fucking time?
Yeah, but she's like, don't you scold her, Pierre. That's
She
my
can't take it.
Maybe he's Peter Kirillovich.
I thought that too, but that's... He's not Peter. I know, but sometimes
Pierre...
they have these like spare names.
Yeah, exactly.
She is so much to be pitied. So much to be pitied.
Natasha was standing in the middle of the drawing room, emaciated, with a pale, set face, but not at all shamefaced as Pierre expected to find her. When he appeared at the door, she grew flurried, evidently undecided whether to go to meet him or to wait till he came up.
Pierre hastened to her. He thought she would give him her hand as usual, but she, stepping up to him, stopped, breathing heavily, her arms hanging lifelessly just in the pose she used to stand in when she went to the middle of the ballroom to sing, but with quite a different expression on her face.
Peter Kirillovich, she began rapidly. Prince Bolkonsky was your friend, is your friend, she corrected herself. It seemed to her that everything that had once been must now be different. He told me once to apply to you.
Pierre sniffed as he looked at her, but did not speak. Till then he had reproached her in his heart and tried to despise her, but he now felt so sorry for her that there was no room in his soul for reproach.
He is here now. Tell him to forgive me. She stopped and breathed still more quickly, but did not shed tears.
Yes, I will tell him, answered Pierre, but...
He did not know what to say.
Natasha was evidently dismayed at the thought of what he might think she had meant.
No, I know all is over, she said hurriedly. No, that can never be. I'm only tormented by the wrong I have done him. Tell him only that I beg him to forgive me for everything.
She trembled all over and sat down on a chair.
sense of pity he had never before known overflowed Pierre's heart.
I will tell them everything once more, said Pierre, but I should like to know one thing.
Know what? Natasha's eyes asked.
I should like to know, did you love? Pierre did not know how to refer to Anatoly and flushed at the thought of him. Did you love that bad man?
Don't call him bad, said Natasha. I don't know at all.
She began to cry, and a still greater sense of pity, tenderness, and love welled up in Pierre. He felt the tears trickle under his spectacles and hoped they would not be noticed.
We won't speak of it anymore, my dear.
He's like, what?
We won't speak of it anymore, my dear, said Pierre, and his gentle, cordial tone suddenly seemed very strange to Natasha.
We won't speak of it, my dear. I'll tell him everything, but one thing I beg of you. Consider me your friend, and if you want help, advice, or simply to open your heart to someone, not now, but when your mind is clearer, think of me. He took her hand and kissed it. I shall be happy if it's in my power.
Pierre grew confused.
Don't speak to me like that. I am not worth it, exclaimed Natasha and turned to leave the room, but Pierre held her hand.
He knew he had something more to say to her, but when he said it, he was amazed at his own words.
Stop. You have your whole life before you, said he to her.
Before me? No. All is over for me, she replied with shame and self-abasement.
Did you go into italics suddenly?
It got weird and spacey.
Just like me. All over, he repeated. If I were not myself, but the handsomest, cleverest, and best man in the world, and were free, I would this moment ask on my knees for your hand and your love.
For the first time for many days, Natasha wept tears of gratitude and tenderness, and glancing at Pierre, she went out of the room.
Pierre, too, when she had gone, almost ran into the anteroom, restraining tears of tenderness and joy that choked him, and without finding the sleeves of his fur cloak, threw it on and got into his sleigh.
Where to now, Your Excellency? Asked the coachman.
Where to? Pierre asked himself. Where can I go now? Surely not to the club or to pay calls? All men seemed so pitiful, so poor in comparison with this feeling of tenderness and love he experienced. In comparison with that soft and grateful last look she had given him through her tears. What is happening?
They're in love.
Okay, I guess I should just accept that. Clearly he is, but I just feel like we're barreling towards something. Okay.
Home, said Pierre, and despite 22 degrees of frost Fahrenheit, he threw open the bearskin cloak from his broad chest and inhaled the air with joy.
It was clear and frosty. I'm getting the weird feeling like he somehow thinks she's on the same page. Am I just making this up? Like, why is he so happy right
No,
now?
I think he's just like, he's just exhilarated that he said that.
So he's just like alive.
Yeah.
I don't know how it was interpreted, but okay.
It was clear and frosty.
Oh, yeah. It was clear and frosty. Above the dirty, ill-lit streets, above the black roofs, stretched the dark, starry sky. Only looking up at the sky did Pierre cease to feel how sordid and humiliating were all mundane things compared to the heights to which his soul had just been raised. At the entrance to the Arbat Square, an immense expanse of dark, starry sky presented itself to his eyes. Almost in the center of it, above the Prechitsenka Boulevard, surrounded and sprinkled on all sides by stars but distinguished from them all its nearness to the earth, its white light, its long uplifted tail shone the enormous and brilliant comet of 1812.
Oh yes, that comet.
Ah, no, really.
You know of this?
Well, because there was a show called Natasha, Pierre, and the comet of 1812.
Wait, what?
Isn't there a show at Osnova called Natasha, Pierre, and the Comet of 1812?
Mm-hmm.
I think there was. This is too weird of a thing to make up.
Okay.
The comet which was said to portend all kinds of woes and the end of the world. In Pierre, however, that comet with its long, luminous tail, I just realized that musical was about these people.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, but I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's cool.
It aroused no feeling of fear. On the contrary, he gazed joyfully, his eyes moist with tears, at that bright comet which, having traveled in its orbit with inconceivable velocity through immeasurable space, seemed suddenly like an arrow piercing the earth, to remain fixed in a chosen spot, vigorously holding its tail. Vigorously holding its tail erect. How can you hold something vigorously? No, it's one of those lightly boldly. Shining and displaying its white light amid countless other scintillating stars, it seemed to Pierre that this comet fully responded to what was passing in his own softened and uplifted soul, now blossoming into a new life.
Oh, that's the end of the book.
Yeah, I realized we stopped in a very weird
We
place
really did.
last night because we just started reading, and I think that might have been the climax of like one of the climaxes. I don't know. Book 9.
Yeah.
We started book 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what to say about that. It's kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah. Tolstoy's writing is like a sandwich with all the ingredients all out of proportion with each other.
That's such a great analogy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's
it's like,
this
oh.
much lettuce.
Oh, I also think it's like where things are like not, like a good sandwich is evenly distributed.
Yeah.
But
This
also
is a
like
three-dimensional analogy.
every bite you get some of everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, the sandwich is like, where's the pickle? Or whatever.
Yeah,
And there's
no,
only
that's
pickle
actually-
in this one little
Right.
corner.
That's kind of what I meant. All the like ingredients are all out of whack. All that analogy works. Yeah. Because we just spent like an hour eating. I don't know. The distribution of attention is so weird.
Suddenly you're like left with this like weird bite where you're like, I don't know what I just ate.
Yeah, it's a bunch of lettuce and then a comet.
Yes. What's the musical about?
I mean,
Is it just a
presumably
love
then.
story? And there's a comment.
Music. Are you looking it up or?
Yeah. Comment of 18.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was a huge hit.
Huh. I knew.
I did, but I did not know it was about this. After all.
It is based on Volume 2, Part 5 of Tolstoy's.
How can that be?
Wait, Volume 2.
Part 5. How can that be?
I don't know. This is broken up into different ways, focusing on Natasha's affair with Anatoly and Pierre's search for meaning in his life. Josh Groban played Pierre.
Not in Osmo, but he didn't. Maybe in the big one.
The big one.
I knew some people in the first couple of. That's cool.
Huh.
Okay, are we ready to move forward? Or?
Yes. I want to listen to. Oh.
You want to what?
I want to look. I'm curious about the music, but I'll look this up later. From the close of the year, chapter 1. Wait, what do we want to say the year? So book 9, 1812. Apparently we're just staying in 1812 now.
For the rest of
Get ready. Get used to it.
I hope everybody liked 1812.
There was a war in 1812.
The War of 1812.
Yes, yes, yes.
Everything's coming together.
The only war that Canadians know.
Why?
Or like that they like to
Really?
talk about. Yeah, because they took the White House.
Ooh. A thriller.
I know.
I know nothing about the War of 1812.
I don't really know. I just know they did that.
But Canada was a major player.
Major player. Everyone underestimated them. Wonder why. So, Chapter 1. From the close of the year 1811, intensified arming and concentrating of the forces of Western Europe began. And in 1812, these forces, millions of men, reckoning those transporting and feeding the army, moved from the west eastwards to the Russian frontier, toward which since 1811 Russian forces had been similarly drawn. On the 12th of June, 1812, the forces of Western Europe crossed the Russian frontier and the war began. That is, an event took place opposed to human reason and to human nature. Millions of men perpetrated against one another such innumerable crimes, frauds, treacheries, thefts, forgeries, issues of false money, burglaries, incendiarisms, and murders as in whole centuries are not recorded in the annals of the law courts of the world, but which those who committed them did not at the time regard as being crimes.
Sorry, what book is this? Who wrote this?
New book.
What produced this? This is an essay, suddenly. About, okay. What produced this extraordinary occurrence? What were its causes? The historians tell us with naive assurance that its causes were the wrongs inflicted on the Duke of Oldenburg, the non-observance of the continental system, the ambition of Napoleon, the firmness of Alexander, the mistakes of the diplomatists, and so on.
Consequently, it would only have been necessary for Metternich, Rumiantsev, or Talleyrand, between a levee and an evening party, to have taken proper pains and written a more adroit note, or for Napoleon to have written to Alexander, "My respected brother, I consent to restore the duchy to the Duke of Oldenburg," and there would have been no war.
We can understand that the matter, this is so strange, seemed like that to contemporaries. We can understand the matter seemed like that to contemporaries. It naturally seemed to Napoleon that the war was caused by England's intrigues, as in fact he said on the Isle of St. Helena. It naturally seemed to members of the English Parliament that the cause of the war was Napoleon's ambition, to the Duke of Oldenburg that the cause of the war was the violence done to him, to businessmen that the cause of the war was the continental system which was ruining Europe, to the generals and old soldiers that the chief reason for the war was the necessity of giving them employment, to the legitimists, this is all one sentence, to the legitimists of that day, that it was the need of re-establishing les bons principes, I don't know how you say that, and to the diplomatists of that time, that it had resulted from the fact that the alliance between Russia and Austria in 1809 had not been sufficiently well concealed from Napoleon and from the awkward wording of Memorandum Number 178. Is that the end of the sentence or just 178? It's the end of the sentence.
I think it's the end of the sentence.
Cool. It is natural that these and the countless and infinite quantity of other reasons, the number, depending on the endless diversity of points of view, presented themselves to the men of that day. But to us, to posterity, my brain's hurting.
Me too.
I do not know what was in store for us in book. What book is this?
9.
I was not ready for this.
I wonder if anyone has like a favorite book. Yes. 9. Finally.
I'm beyond confused at the fucking tone right now.
I think he's finally trying to fill us in on what was going on.
What a fascinating time to do it.
Really, thanks.
Just
Thanks for
right
finally giving us a history lesson.
Literally midstream. Not literally, but figuratively.
Not even midstream.
Midstream.
Or I guess midstream.
Literally.
Yes. I'm kidding. Is it? What percentage?
50!
50!
Literally, that's what I meant by mid. Oh my god. Where the fuck even were we? But to us, there?
It is natural, I think.
No.
No? You regret that?
Yes.
Okay.
Please, God, don't make me repeat it.
I will not.
But to us, to posterity who view the thing that happened in all its magnitude and perceive its plain and terrible meaning, these causes seem insufficient. To us, it is incomprehensible that millions of Christian men killed and tortured each other because Napoleon was ambitious or Alexander was firm, or because England's policy was astute or the Duke of Oldenburg wrong. We cannot grasp what connection such circumstances have with the actual fact of slaughter and violence. Why? Because the Duke was wrong. Thousands of men from the other side of Europe killed and ruined the people of Smolensk and Moscow and were killed by them.
To us, their descendants, who are not historians and are not carried away by the progress of research and can therefore regard the event with unclouded common sense, an incalculable number of causes present themselves. The deeper we delve in search of these causes, the more of them we find, and each separate cause or whole series of causes appears to us equally valid in itself and equally false by its insignificance compared to the magnitude of the events, and by its impotence, apart from the cooperation of all the other coincident causes, to occasion the event.
There's like 2 sentences per page in book 9 here so far.
Okay. Basically, he's just saying
there are so many reasons.
There's so many things one cannot grasp it, except we can, because we're not in it. Cool. To us, the wish or objection of this or that French corporal to serve a second term appears as much a cause as Napoleon's refusal to withdraw his troops beyond the Vistula.
Does it?
Yeah. For he had not wished to serve, and had a second, third, and 1,000th corporal and private also refused, there would have been so many less men in Napoleon's army, and the war could not have occurred. That's true.
Had Napoleon not taken offense at the demand, this is written by like the most ostentatious possible 12-year-old.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how old he was.
I just mean that there's something like so young and juvenile about it, but it's also in the most like.
It's smart talk.
Yeah. Yeah, the kind of things where people go on and on forever, and what are they even saying?
That's why I'm like, where was his editor?
You're right. You're right.
Like, cut this.
This essay should have been cut. Or maybe put at the beginning of the book and not call.
If this was a thesis, there would be lots of red lines through this.
Lots of punctuation.
Yeah.
Break up these motherfuckers every once in a while. Mm-hmm. Had Napoleon not taken offense at the demand that he should withdraw beyond the Vistula and not ordered his troops to advance, there would have been no war. Oh my God. But had all his sergeants objected to serving a second term, then also there could have been no war. Nor could there have been a war had there been no English intrigues and no Duke of Oldenburg, and had Alexander not felt insulted, and had there not been an autocratic government in Russia or a revolution in France, and a subsequent dictatorship and empire, or all the things that produced the French Revolution, and so on.
Yes, we get it.
You can just say
Lots
so
of
on.
Pieces.
He could have said so on 3 pages ago. Without each of these causes, nothing could have happened. So all these causes, myriads of causes, coincided to bring it about. And so there was no one cause for that occurrence. But it had to occur because it had to. Millions of men renouncing their human feelings and reason had to go from west to east to slay their fellows, just as some centuries previously hordes of men had come from the east to the west, slaying their fellows.
The actions of Napoleon and Alexander, on whose words the event seemed to hang, were as little voluntary as the actions of any soldier who was drawn into the campaign by lot or by conscription. Is that true? Okay.
Sure.
This could not be otherwise, for in order that the will of Napoleon and Alexander, on whom the event seemed to depend, should be carried out, the concurrence of innumerable circumstances was needed, without any one of which the event could not have taken place. It was necessary that millions of men in whose hands lay the real power, the soldiers who fired or transported provisions and guns, should consent to carry out the will of these weak individuals, and should have been induced to do so by an infinite number of diverse and complex causes.
And so on. We are forced to fall back on fatalism. Are we? As an explanation of irrational events That is to say, events the reasonableness of which we do not understand. The more we try to explain such events in history reasonably, the more unreasonable and incomprehensible do they become to us.
Each man lives for himself, using his freedom to attain his personal aims, and feels with his whole being that he can now do or abstain from doing this or that action. But as soon as he has done it, that action performed at a certain moment in time becomes irrevocable and belongs to history in which it has not a free but a predestined significance.
There are two sides to the life of every man. There's two kinds of people in this world. That's where we are. There are two sides to the life of every man. His individual life, which is the more free, the more abstract its interests, and his elemental hive life, in which he inevitably obeys laws laid down.
Man lives consciously for himself, but is an unconscious instrument in the attainment of the historic universal aims of humanity. A deed done is irrevocable, and its result coinciding in time with the actions of millions of other men assumes an historic significance. The higher a man stands on the social ladder, the more people he is connected with, and the more power he has over others, the more evident is the predestination and inevitability of every action.
The king's heart is in the hands of the Lord.
A king is history's slave.
History, that is, the unconscious general hive life of mankind, uses every moment of the life of kings as a tool for its own purposes.
Though Napoleon at that time in 1812 was more convinced than ever that it depended on him, verser ou ne pas verser le sang de ses peuples, so to spill or not spill the blood of his people, as Alexander expressed in the last letter he wrote him, he had never been so much in the grip of inevitable laws, which compelled him, while thinking that he was acting on his own volition, to perform for the hive life, that is to say, for history, whatever had to be performed.
Is it time yet for me to ask again, where are we?
So it seems like he's saying it is not kings who decide history.
No,
history
I know,
decides.
but since when is he saying things?
Yeah.
Maybe it's much for the other two.
You're just like, this is not the style of the book. You can't just do this. You can't just go into an essay now in the middle of it.
It's not just you. It's not you can't. Obviously, he did.
Yeah.
This is like that weird section of Pierre's journals.
Totally.
But he doesn't do it often enough for it to be a thing. It's just like, oh, just kidding. Let me just slice through the curtain real quick into this other show.
I wonder.
You can peek through the curtain at this show.
I wonder if, alternatively, this is why some people like War and Peace.
It's not the reason I don't like it.
Huh.
I'm just commenting on it because it's extremely unusual.
Yeah.
To, in a thing for such long periods of time.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like we've read this for eons. And then to suddenly completely...
Yeah, it does seem like suddenly we're entering a new book. And maybe we are.
Question though.
Mm-hmm.
Has Pierre's journal, are there any other times it's felt like that? Like just sudden tone shifts?
Pierre's journal definitely was one. There's definitely been that kind of shift around characters where you're like,
for sure.
What? Suddenly this... So weird what he chooses to reveal and what he chooses to hide.
Very.
Yeah. There's all these passages where it's like, why do we need to know this little conversation at a dinner party? And he goes into it at length and in detail and then skips out huge portions of seemingly very important things. Like the war or any conversation between Pierre and his wife, for instance. Okay. But this seems the most stark a change that there's been in the book.
This is a very long chapter.
Yeah?
I think.
Okay.
If I'm reading this correctly.
Oh, no, this chapter's almost done.
Okay. Maybe the book then. 20 hours, 15 minutes left in the book. Is that the whole book?
That must be the book. Yes.
I don't know. I don't really know what speed of how fast people read when it's on a Kindle. You know what I mean? I don't know how fast it thinks that we're reading.
Okay. It's gotta be.
Should we keep reading?
Yeah.
The people of the West moved eastwards to slay their fellow men, and by the law of coincidence, thousands of minute causes fitted in and coordinated to produce that movement and war. Reproaches for the non-observance of the fucking continental system. The Duke of Edinburgh, Oldenburg's... Why are we going through this list again? The Duke of Oldenburg's wrongs, the movement of troops into Prussia, undertaken, as it seemed to Napoleon, only for the purpose of securing an armed peace. The French Emperor's love and habit of war, coinciding with his people's inclinations, allurement by the grandeur of the preparations, and the expenditure on those preparations and the need of obtaining advantages to compensate for that expenditure. The intoxicating honors he received in Dresden, the diplomatic negotiations which, in the opinion of his contemporaries, were carried on with a sincere desire to attain peace, but which only wounded the self-love of both sides, and millions of other causes that adapted themselves to the event that was happening or coincided with it. It was literally the same.
I also feel like I'm not absorbing.
Maybe because the sentence goes on for half an hour.
If he actually were, yeah, exactly. Like, he could be laying it out in a much clearer way. Instead, he's just saying, like, you could try to understand this, but you would be stupid to try to do so.
And if you were to make a list which is futile, then some of the things that might be on that list, which don't do, by the way, is definitely this, and this. But if you were like, only this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, then you're done. I can't.
When an apple has ripened and falls, why does it fall? Because of its attraction to the earth, because its stalk withers, because it is dried by the sun, because it grows heavier, because the wind shakes it, or because the boy standing below wants to eat it.
Yes.
Definitely because the boy standing below.
Yes, and yes, okay. Nothing is the cause. All this is only the coincidence of conditions in which all vital organic and elemental events occur. And the botanist who finds that the apple falls because the cellular tissue decays and so forth is equally right with the child who stands under the tree and says the apple fell because he wanted to eat it and prayed for it. Equally right or wrong is he who says that Napoleon went to Moscow because he wanted to and perished because Alexander desired his destruction, and he who says that an undermined hill weighing 1,000,000 tons fell because the last navvy struck it for the first time with his mattock. The what?
A navvy is a laborer employed in the excavation and construction of a road, railroad, or canal.
And they use mattocks. Apparently. In historic events, the so-called great men are labels giving names to events, and like labels, they have but the smallest connection with the event itself.
Okay. Great men are just... Okay.
Yeah, they're just a name for something, because as he said numerous other times, Napoleon isn't what single-handedly the cause of the war, even though it's one person isn't.
History is using him. He's not using history.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. Every act of theirs basically says that men don't have free will.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that?
I don't know.
Every act of theirs, which appears to them an act of their own will, is in a historical sense involuntary, and is related to the whole course of history and predestined from eternity. This is the... Okay. He's making an absolute Maybe.
I feel like my response to every sentence is like, yes and no. Mm-hmm. So great. Chapter 2, I guess.
I hope we're done with that.
Watch it be like just way more of that. This is a prank. War and Peace is a prank. Chapter 2. This doesn't look good. On the 29th of May, Napoleon left Dresden, where he had spent 3 weeks surrounded by a court that included princes, dukes, kings, and even an emperor. Before leaving, Napoleon showed favor to the emperor, kings, and princes who had deserved it, reprimanded the kings and princes with whom he was dissatisfied, presented pearls and diamonds of his own, that is, which he had taken from other kings, to the Empress of Austria, and having, as his historian tells us, tenderly embraced the Empress Marie-Louise, who regarded him as her husband, though he had left another wife in Paris, left her grieved by the parting, which she seemed hardly able to bear. Though the diplomatists still firmly believed in the cause of peace and worked zealously to that end, and though the Emperor Napoleon himself wrote a letter to Alexander calling him Monsieur mon frère, and sincerely assured him that he did not want war and would always love and honor him, yet he set off to join his army and at every station gave fresh orders to accelerate the movement of his troops from west to east. He went in a traveling coach with 6 horses, surrounded by pages, aides-de-camp, and an escort along the road to Posen, Thorn, Danzig, and Königsberg. At each of these towns, thousands of people met him with excitement and enthusiasm.
The army was moving from west to east, and relays of 6 horses carried him in the same direction. On the 10th of June, coming up with the army, he spent the night in apartments prepared for him on the estate of a Polish count in the Wilkowiecki forest.
Next day, overtaking the army, he went in a carriage to the Niemen, and changing into a Polish uniform, he drove to the riverbank in order to select a place for the crossing.
Seeing on the other side some Cossacks, les Cossacks, thanks, and the widespread...
This is like the 26th time the word Cossack has been in this book.
But now it's because it's Napoleon. Ah, le Cossack. We're inside his head. Sure. And the widespreading steps.
Since this is the point where the French start to take over the world, I should start addressing the French readers now.
Right.
Because I'm inextricably linked from history, and so is this chapter.
And the widespreading steppe in the midst of which lay the holy city of Moscow. Moscow, la ville sainte. And the capital of a realm such as the Scythia into which Alexander the Great had marched. Napoleon unexpectedly, and contrary alike to strategic and diplomatic considerations, ordered an advance, and the next day his army began to cross the Niemen.
Early in the morning of the 12th of June, he came out of his tent, which was pitched that day on the steep left bank of the Niemen, and looked through a spyglass at the streams of his troops pouring out of the Wilkowiecki forest and flowing over the 3 bridges thrown across the river. The troops, knowing of the emperor's presence, were on the lookout for him, and when they caught sight of a figure in an overcoat and a cocked hat standing apart from his suite in front of his tent on the hill, they threw up their caps and shouted, "Vive l'Empereur!" And one of... Like, why would you, if you were the emperor, dress all conspicuously and, like, cock your hat and be like, it's me?
Because he's jaunty.
I guess they're not going for the emperor. They're trying to kill the king, I suppose. One after another poured in a ceaseless stream out of the vast forest that had concealed them, and separating, flowed on and on by the 3 bridges to the other side.
Now we'll go into action. Oh. Who's talking? Now we'll go into action.
Who has been talking this whole time and who is talking now?
I know. Oh, when he takes it in hand himself, things get hot. By heaven, there he is. Vive l'Empereur! So these are the steppes of Asia. It's a nasty country all the same. Au revoir, Boche. I'll keep the best palace in Moscow for you. Au revoir. Good luck. Did you see the emperor? Vive l'empereur! Brr.
What does that mean? What's that word? What's pro?
Brr. Like an echo. Vive l'empereur!
Oh.
I'm guessing. If they make me governor of India, Gerard, I'll make you minister of Kashmir. That's settled. Vive l'empereur! Hurrah! Hurrah! Hurrah!
I feel like you always get these passages. Does it seem like?
Yeah, kind of. The Cossacks, those rascals. See how they run. Vive l'empereur! There he is. Oh yeah. The fruit. There he is. Do you see him? I've seen him twice. As I see you now, the little corporal. I saw him give the cross to one of the veterans. Vive l'empereur! Came the voices of men, old and young, of most diverse characters and social positions. On the faces of all was one common expression of joy at the commencement of the long-expected campaign, and of rapture and devotion to the man in the gray coat who was standing on the hill. Okay. I should have given those all different voices. That's the problem. That's why it's confusing. Yeah. Yes. I apologize.
I think we should go back. I just want to point out that we're still in his weird author voice.
Ugh.
Except this time we had a bunch of quotes, not from characters that we know in the book that we've been reading.
Just a cacophony.
Just people in history, generally.
Yeah.
On the 13th of June, I need donuts from this experience.
You should order them now.
I already ordered food today. It was actually supposed to be soup, but it was very thick. I thought of the udon noodles. I never ordered those. You know those ones that are like this fat?
Yeah, really good.
Pretty good. Sorry, do you want to be there for a second?
Sure.
I'm very busy with something quite important.
Okay. On the 13th of June, a rather small thoroughbred Arab horse was brought to Napoleon. He mounted it and rode at a gallop to one of the bridges over the Niemen, deafened continually by incessant and rapturous acclamations, which he evidently endured only because it was impossible to forbid the soldiers to express their love of him by such shouting. But the shouting which accompanied him everywhere disturbed him and distracted him from the military cares that had occupied him from the time he joined the army. He rode across one of the swaying pontoon bridges to the farther side, turned sharply to the left, galloped in the direction of Cogno, preceded by enraptured mounted chasseurs of the guard who, breathless with delight, galloped ahead to clear a path for him through the troops. On reaching the broad river Vilia, he stopped near a regiment of Polish Uhlans stationed by the river. "Vivat!" shouted the Poles, ecstatically, breaking their ranks and pressing against one another to see him. Napoleon looked up and down the river, dismounted, and sat down on a log that lay on the bank. At a mute sign from him, a telescope was handed him, which he rested on the back of a happy page, who had run up to him, and he gazed at the opposite bank. Then he became absorbed in a map laid out on the logs. Without lifting his head, he said something, and two of his aides-de-camp galloped off to the Polish Uhlans. What did he say?" was heard in the ranks of the Polish Uhlans when one of the aides-de-camp rode up to them. The order was to find a ford and to cross the river. The colonel of the Polish Uhlans, a handsome old man, flushed and fumbling in his speech from excitement, asked the aide-de-camp whether he would be permitted to swim the river with his Uhlans instead of seeking a ford. In evident fear of refusal, like a boy asking for permission to get on a horse, he begged to be allowed to swim across the river before the emperor's eyes. The aide-de-camp replied that probably the emperor would not be displeased at this excess of zeal.
It's closed.
It is? So strange. It's only 8:30.
I think they close at 8.
Are there other donuts?
I don't know any.
Donuts. What about that other place downtown?
The same place?
You remember, like,
At one time I got a fork for donuts.
Yeah, that's
I was wondering where I got those. I can't tell this time.
Big Jim's Donuts.
I'm sure this is fascinating for everyone.
Great. This is really what they tune in for.
Listen, people. Actually, don't listen.
Don't listen.
That was rude. I got your attention and then proceeded to fuck around looking for donuts. Don't listen, people. Do something else, people.
Donut Farm. Oh no, is closed.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I'll just put a bunch of stuff in my cart from Sage, and then not hit send.
Ooh.
Sorry. Where are you?
As soon as the aide-de-camp had said this. Okay, I'll just keep reading and you try to find. As soon as the aide-de-camp had said this, the old mustached officer, with happy face and sparkling eyes, raised his saber, shouted "Vivat!" and, commanding the Uhlans to follow him, spurred his horse and galloped into the river. He gave an angry thrust to his horse, which had grown restive under him, and plunged into the water, heading for the deepest part where the current was swift. Hundreds of Uhlans galloped in after him. It was cold and uncanny in the rapid current in the middle of the stream, and the Uhlans caught hold of one another as they fell off their horses. Some of the horses were drowned, and some of the men. The others tried to swim on, some in the saddle and some clinging to their horses' manes. They tried to make their way forward to the opposite bank, and, though there was a ford 1/3 of a mile away, were proud that they were swimming and drowning in this river under the eyes of the man who sat on the log and was not even looking at what they were doing. When the aide-de-camp, having returned and choosing an opportune moment, ventured to draw the emperor's attention to the devotion of the Poles to his person, the little man in the grey overcoat got up and, having summoned Berthier, began pacing up and down the bank with him, giving him instructions and occasionally glancing disapprovingly at the drowning Uhlans who distracted his attention.
For him, it was no new conviction that his presence in any part of the world, from Africa to the steppes of Muscovy alike, was enough to dumbfound people and impel them to insane self-oblivion. He called for his horse and rode to his quarters.
Some 40 Uhlans were drowned in the river, though boats were sent to their assistance. The majority struggled back to the bank from which they had started. The colonel and some of his... That's terrible. It also makes zero sense.
I can't even...
The colonel and some of his men got across and with difficulty clambered out on the farther bank. And as soon as they had got out in their soaked and streaming clothes, they shouted, "Vivat!" and looked ecstatically at the spot where Napoleon had been, but where he was no longer, and at that moment considered themselves happy.
I have not processed this at all.
So they're like, he's marching with the army, and then they get to a river.
A bunch of people.
And they're like, well, we'll cross it. It doesn't matter. We'll cross it. And then they drown. Yeah.
And then the people, the ones who didn't die are...
Yeah, they're happy. Because look.
Okay.
They impressed the emperor.
Okay. That evening, between issuing one order that the forged Russian paper money prepared for use in Russia should be delivered as quickly as possible, and another that a Saxon should be shot, on whom a letter containing information about the orders to the French army had been found, Napoleon also gave instructions that the Polish colonel who had needlessly plunged into the river should be enrolled in the Legion d'Honneur, of which Napoleon was himself the head.
Quos vult perder dementat. Those whom God wishes to destroy, he drives mad.
Cool. So that was chapter 2.
What was the last paragraph? That was so confusing. I might as well not have read that.
I might as well not have read book 9.
Chapter 3.
Let's try this again. Third time's a charm. Third time's a charm.
The Emperor of Russia
no, it's not.
No. The Emperor of Russia, yes, Alexander, had meanwhile been in Vilna for more than a month, reviewing troops and holding maneuvers. Nothing was ready for the war that everyone expected and to prepare for which the Emperor had come from Petersburg. There was no general plan of action. The vacillation between the various plans that were proposed had even increased after the Emperor had been at headquarters for a month. Each of the three armies had its own commander-in-chief, but there was no supreme commander of all the forces, and the Emperor did not assume that responsibility himself.
The longer the Emperor remained in Vilna, the less did everybody, tired of waiting, prepare for the war. What? The less did everybody prepare for the war.
Yeah.
All the effort of those who surrounded the sovereign seemed directed merely to making him spend his time pleasantly and forget that war was impending. Cool.
In June, after many balls and fetes given by the Polish magnates, by the courtiers, and by the Emperor himself, it occurred to one of the Polish aides-de-camp in attendance that a dinner and ball should be given for the Emperor by his aides-de-camp. This idea was eagerly received. The Emperor gave his consent. The aide-de-camp collected money by subscription. The lady who was thought to be most pleasing to the Emperor was invited to act as hostess. Count Benningsen, being a landowner in the Vilna province, offered his country house for the fete, and the 13th of June was fixed for a ball, dinner, regatta, and fireworks at Sakret, Count Benningsen's country seat.
The very day that Napoleon issued the order to cross the Niemen and his vanguard driving off the Cossacks, the who?
Le Cossack?
Oh, crossed the Russian frontier, Alexander spent the evening at the entertainment given by his aides-de-camp at Benningsen's country house. A party.
Of course. That's what one should do when war is impending and they don't have a plan.
We love good parties.
It was a gay and brilliant fete.
Well then.
Connoisseurs of such matters declared that rarely had so many beautiful women been assembled in one place. Countess Bezhukova was present among other Russian ladies who had followed the sovereign from Petersburg to Vilna and eclipsed the refined Polish ladies by her massive, so-called Russian type of beauty. The Emperor noticed her and honored her with a dance.
Boris Drubetskoy, having left his wife in Moscow and being for the present un garçon, as he phrased it, was also there, and though not an aide-de-camp, had subscribed a large sum toward the expenses. Boris was now a rich man, who had risen to high honors and no longer sought patronage, but stood on an equal footing with the highest of those of his own age. He was meeting Helena in Vilna after not having seen her for a long time and did not recall the past. But as Helena was enjoying the favor of a very important personage and Boris had only recently been married, they met as good friends of long standing.
At midnight, dancing was still going on. Helena, not having a suitable partner, herself offered to dance the mazurka with Boris. They were the third couple. Boris, coolly looking at Helena's dazzling bare shoulders, which emerged from a dark gold embroidered gauze gown, talked to her of old acquaintances, and at the same time unaware of it himself and unnoticed by others, never for an instant ceased to observe the Emperor, who was in the same room. The Emperor was not dancing. He stood in the doorway, stopping now one pair and now another, with gracious words which he alone knew how to utter.
Is Boris the one that Helena had that affair with and then he married Julie?
Mm-hmm.
As the mazurka began, Boris saw the Adjutant General Balashev, one of those in closest attendance on the Emperor, went up to him and, contrary to court etiquette, stood near him while he was talking to a Polish lady. Having finished speaking to her, the Emperor looked inquiringly at Balashev, and evidently understanding that he only acted thus because there were important reasons for doing so, nodded slightly to the lady and turned to him. Hardly had Balashev begun to speak before a look of amazement appeared on the Emperor's face. He took Balashev by the arm and crossed the room with him, unconsciously clearing a path 7 yards wide as the people on both sides made way for him. Boris noticed Arakchev's excited face when the sovereign went out with Balashev. That's a really hard word to say. Arakshif. Looked at the emperor from under his brow and, sniffing with his red nose, stepped forward from the crowd as if expecting the emperor to address him. Boris understood that Arakshif envied Balashev and was displeased that evidently important news had reached the emperor otherwise than through himself.
But the emperor and Balashev passed out into the illuminated garden without noticing Arakchev, who, holding his sword and glancing wrathfully around, followed some 20 paces behind them.
All the time Boris was going through the figures of the mazurka, he was worried by the question of what news Balashev had brought and how he could find it out before others. In the figure in which he had to choose two ladies, he whispered to Helena that he meant to choose Countess Potoka, who, he thought, had gone out onto the veranda and glided over the parquet to the door opening into the garden, where, seeing Balashev and the emperor returning to the veranda, he stood still. They were moving toward the door. Boris, fluttering as if he had not had time to withdraw, respectfully pressed close to the doorpost with bowed head.
The emperor, with the agitation of one who has been personally affronted, was finishing with these words.
To enter Russia without declaring war, I will not make peace as long as a single armed army remains in my country. It seemed to Boris that it gave the emperor pleasure to utter these words. He was satisfied with the form in which he had expressed his thoughts, but displeased that Boris had overheard it.
Let no one know of it, the emperor added with a frown.
Boris understood that this was meant for him, and closing his eyes, slightly bowed his head. The emperor re-entered the ballroom and remained there about another half hour.
Boris was thus the first to learn the news that the French army had crossed the Niemen, and thanks to this, was able to show certain important personages that much that was concealed from others was usually known to him, and by this means he rose higher in their estimation.
The unexpected news of the French having crossed the Niemen was particularly startling after a month of unfulfilled expectations and out of all. On first receiving the news, under the influence of indignation and resentment, the emperor had found a phrase that pleased him, fully expressed his feelings, and has since become famous. On returning home at 2 o'clock that night, he sent for his secretary, Shishkov, and told him to write an order to the troops and a rescript to Field Marshal Prince Saltykov, in which he insisted on the words being inserted that he would not make peace so long as a single armed Frenchman remained on Russian soil.
Next day, the following letter was sent to Napoleon.
Monsieur mon frère.
Yesterday, I learned that, despite the loyalty with which I have kept my engagements with your majesty, your troops have crossed the Russian frontier, and I have this moment received from Petersburg a note in which Count Lauriston informs me, as a reason for this aggression, that your majesty has considered yourself to be in a state of war with me from the time Prince Kuragin asked for his passports. The reason on which the Duc de Bassano based his refusal to deliver them to him would never have led me to suppose that could serve as a pretext for aggression.
I don't know
what's happening. In fact, the ambassador, as he himself has declared, was never authorized to make that demand. And as soon as I was informed of it, I let him know how much I disapproved of it and ordered him to remain at his post. If your majesty does not intend to shed the blood of our peoples for such a misunderstanding and consents to withdraw your troops from Russian territory, I will regard what has passed as not having occurred, and an understanding between us will be possible. In the contrary case, your majesty, I shall see myself forced to repel an attack that nothing on my part has provoked. It still depends on your majesty to preserve humanity from the calamity of another war. I am, etc., Alexander.
End of chapter 3.
Prince Kuragin asked for his passport?
I don't know. I thought that was, yeah.
I'm like, is it time to finally do the history lesson? That's like...
Possibly, but then, I mean...
How much research should have gone into reading War and Peace? Is this something people do? Do people like read books and then read other books in order to read the book.
Probably.
We just want it spoon-fed to us.
Yeah.
Just tell us what happens. Just give us the Coles Notes version, and then we can be on our way.
How would that help us, though, right now?
Because then we would be like, all right, we went across the Neiman.
Would that make you be like...
I think so. I might have like more, because he gives so little and so much, and where it seems not needed. He goes into such detail for like what seems extraneous. I'm like, what is this event? But actually, crossing that river rings a bell for me.
Okay.
Doesn't it for you?
I don't know. I don't know.
The War of 1812. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, we could give our brains a rest.
I would like to. Especially because I feel like I'm going to read that whole thing again.
Kind of, right? Oh, it's just about to start. The war, really. So complicated. This is why, like, people get really into history.
This is what?
But it's one of those things where to understand a piece of it, you have to go back and understand another piece, and then you have to go back and understand another piece. So it can feel, at least to me, like very, like it excludes you.
I completely agree with you on everything you were saying just now about having to understand more. Like, but I don't follow you to the excludes you bit.
Because you can't just jump in. I mean, I guess you can, but you feel stupid. There's so many questions. Yeah.
I think it's probably the same jumping in here as anything else, no? Do you feel like it's more unacceptable for one to not know it? For one to not know it?
Mm-hmm. Maybe it just gets confusing really quickly. And then it almost becomes like you feel like you know less.
Yeah.
having tried to learn something. Yeah. Yeah, you like very quickly become aware of what you don't know.
Yeah.
That you didn't even know you needed. Yeah, so you run a deficit for a while.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. And I agree.
Yeah. I think I'm actually going to read. I think I'm actually going to do some reading before tomorrow.
I may.
Okay.
I may not.
I mean, there's also something good about like our unfiltered reaction to all of this.
Is there?
Like, and we also know where this is going, right? Isn't this Napoleon's downfall?
Well, it's not until it is.
Right. It's probably not till winter.
I feel like everybody else is going to downfall way before he does. The people that we're concerned with are going to downfall before he does.
See, this is like spoiler. This is why it's confusing. I don't want to spoil the story.
You're not going to spoil the story. I don't think.
Yeah. It's weird that it's based on all these historical events. So I'm like, no, I don't want to read ahead and know what happens.
Right.
But then I read the book, and because it's not explained to me, I'm like, I should have just spoiled it, because that definitely didn't.
I guess I have thus far been unsure what which is the way to go, but I haven't felt like, knowing historically what happened and in what order and all of that stuff is going to make this so much.
Yeah, I mean, like, based on just reading War and Peace, do you know anything about these wars?
Yeah. Based on just reading it?
Yeah.
I know so many things.
I can't even recall that big battle. I can't even recall what that... Austerlitz. Battle at Austerlitz.
Mm-hmm. Was that big, or was it big because we were there?
I'm not sure.
Because
I'm
we were
assuming
at it.
that's a large battle that is well known. But and there was an ambush. Okay,
but all that stuff is stuff that like we can read after this and still be like, oh, interesting, cool.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
The question to me is more like, what does one need to read before one reads this, if anything, and what? It's more order of operations stuff. It's not like, I feel like I know everything about this period in history in that region just because
your dad would be a good one to talk to about this, I feel like.
Yep.
Because I would like to know if he knew all the history of it when he read it and was like, oh yeah, just his reaction.
I don't think so, because when he read it, he was young.
Right.
But I don't know if now he will be able to look back and be, unless it was very much part of the experience of reading the book, like unless he distinctly remembers it because he didn't know shit about what's going on historically. I doubt there's a possibility he won't remember because he won't know which he knew first.
Right.
Because he does know now and has known, I'm assuming, for a long time what happened historically. Yeah.
You know what I just thought of, and made me happy? I was like, when this is over, we get to say that we've read War and Peace.
I had access to that yesterday, but I don't feel so excited about it. Yeah, we can bring it up
everywhere.
Where?
I read War and Peace.
Yeah. No big deal. Just took us months.
And actually, it's funny. I've been thinking, I've been thinking that I haven't been doing enough reading in this quarantine.
What?
Yeah, just realized that.
I
guess this has been like compartmentalized into something else.
I can see, but I don't think I would be like, I'm not reading that.
All those book lists, all those things that people are doing in their spare time.
Oh, people in their buckets.
All the cooking that's going on, apparently.
As far as I know, people are just doing like exercise programs. That's all I'm aware of in the social sphere. All people are doing is listening to DJ sets.
Yeah.
And working out.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm pretty sure that's it, right?
I think so.
People are still working too. Some people. Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. You know? So weird. And then the people who are working are like, yeah, I'm really lucky. And I feel like
Why you feel really?
It makes me feel doubly bad.
Why
so
does it make you
wow,
feel bad?
They're still working in all of this. And they're also, I don't know if it makes me feel bad, but like they're also being super humble about it.
It's not an issue of humility.
That they're grateful that they still get to work.
Yeah.
I don't know. There isn't any bit of like to work. I think there is some of that, but like then the thing to say is always like, yes, I'm really lucky. I still get to work.
This is making it sound like the gratitude is like a moral feature rather than like.
Oh, I mean, like I always have that twisted up relationship with gratitude.
I think people are glad because otherwise they'd be in
exactly
in the shit. Yeah. And because it's raining again. This is so wild. I wonder if we've ever had this much rain since I've lived here.
Every single day. Was it like this last year?
Again, the like staying at home is really coloring how. I think this maybe has only happened one other time that I've been since I've lived here.
I seem to recall that there was like a 2-week period of nonstop rain.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was over. That was it. It feels like it's been a month of this.
It feels like more than it's ever been, for sure. Oh, brother. Okay, should we take a break?
Yeah. I think we're going to stop here.
Yeah.
Not the best reading.
What do you mean? There was the Comet of 1812.
Yeah, there's that. I'm going to listen to some of that music.
Okay. Just to work in that theater.
Yeah.
So on the first, like, little jobs that I did sometimes. Was like just in the theater, there were like drinks and what's it called? So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it was like mostly so you could see this play. But, yeah, we had to give people like wine and shit. But it was like a little like Bell's Bagels.
Yeah. Okay.
But you were in the theater, so you had to watch everything. It was cool.
Okay. So wait, you saw that play?
No, I worked there years before. Sure.
Okay.
Happy
Easter.
Happy Easter. We should watch Easter Parade. Classic movie.
Oh, that's a movie.
Oh, it's so good.